All aboard for excitement with everyone's #1 train, Thomas the Tank Engine.
I'm Thomas. I run this branch line.
This delightful collection of award-winning videos takes you on a magical journey around the Island of Sodor. It's an enchanting world where life is never boring and fun lies around every bend. Now you can be part of the adventure with Thomas and all his railway friends. There's cheerful Percy, James in his splendid red coat, the proud and strong Gordon, and the ever-faithful Toby. And don't forget the superintendent of the railroad, Sir Topham Hatt, who makes sure everything keeps right on schedule. Each video contains a variety of fun-filled stories that teach the values of friendship, working together, and the importance of trust and honesty. Every journey is one you will want to watch again and again. So get your tickets ready, hop on board, and enjoy stops like the classic excitement of 10 years of Thomas the Tank Engine.
You kept your promise, despite everything.
The humorous antics of Cranky Bugs and other stories. The heart-pounding adventures of races, rescues, and runaways. The whimsical fun of Make Someone Happy.
Well, bust my boiler, Thomas. What are you doing here?
And the toe-tapping sing-along fun of Thomas's Trackside Tunes. Bring the fun out of the roundhouse and into your house. Add all of these titles to your Thomas collection today.
One morning, Sir Topham Hatt and his grandchildren came to see Toby. "Come on, Toby. We're all going to the seaside. We will ride in Henrietta." "Yes, sir," said Toby happily. They came to a small seaside station. Soon the children were playing in the sand, building a splendid castle. Sir Topham Hatt inspected it. "My word, it's a very fine castle. Have you seen a real one like it?" "Yes," replied the children. "It's here on the island," and they showed him a map. Pondered Sir Topham Hatt. They met Toby at the harbor. "Come along, we are going exploring." Soon they were in the wildest part of the island. They stopped by a lonely signal box. "Where are you going?" asked the signalman. "We're trying to find an old castle." "I know the place, sir," said the signalman. "There's a small junction not too far down the line. Just switch the points." When the firemen switched the points, their adventure really began. Toby pushed past branches and bushes until they came to another little junction. There they saw two signs saying, "To the castle" and "To the mine." "We'll go to the castle first." Toby stopped by an old water tower. "There's the castle." "Yes," replied Sir Topham Hatt. "And now we shall visit the mine." Once upon a time, the mine had been worked by the little engines, and their lines were still in place. But now everything was very rusty and overgrown. Sir Topham Hatt was most impressed, but Toby was rather scared. He was glad when it was time to go home. I think the castle and the mine will make a fine place for visitors, but it will take some hard work first. Yes, sir, said Toby nervously. Sir Topham Hatt's plans were soon put into action, but Toby was still worried. I'm sure this place is haunted, he thought. It's our turn to stay here on guard tonight, Toby. Oh, yes, why not? Stuttered Toby. Beware of the ghost, Toby, Thomas said. What ghost? Asked Toby. The old warrior ghost. Every night he lights his fire, then goes hunting. Toot toot! Goodbye. Night came. Toby looked anxiously around. Everything seemed rather spooky. Quite suddenly, he heard a strange wheezing sound. It's the ghost, he wailed. What ghost? His driver asked. It's the old warrior. He's come to hunt me down. Don't be so daft. We'll go and investigate. They returned quite soon. The old warrior wants to meet you, laughed his fireman. Can't it wait till morning? Replied Toby. Ghosts don't work day shifts, said his driver. Toby bravely made his way. Well, bless my bell, he exclaimed. There, in front of him, was a little old engine. This is your ghost, Toby, said the signalman. His name's really Bertram, but we call him the Old Warrior because he's so brave. Bertram and Toby are now friends. They take the visitors to the castle and the mine. If there are any ghosts here, they certainly help to make the place very happy. On the island of Sodor, high up in the mountains was a mysterious boulder. It had stood alone for a long time, but one day workmen arrived to build a quarry on the land below. Rusty, the little diesel, met Thomas and Percy. Where's all this rock coming from? Percy asked. The new quarry, replied Rusty. This mountain rock is good for many things, although it's dangerous up there. Why? Asked Thomas. Because of a big boulder. I think it's watching me, said Rusty nervously. How can it be? Boulders don't have eyes. Well, Percy, there's something strange about this one. Just then, Edward arrived. He was delivering a new piece of machinery for the quarry. What's that? Asked Rusty. It's called Thumper. Apparently it helps collect the rock faster, replied Edward. Soon Thumper was working hard. The men were pleased, but no one bothered to check the boulder. When it rained, the workmen went away. Rusty gazed up and shivered. Above stood Boulder. Suddenly, a large slab of rock landed on the rails. Rusty was shocked. Driver was concerned. We'd best leave till the weather's better. The rain loosened some of this rock. I think it's Boulder wanting us to go away. The next day, the sun shone. Thumper was working harder than ever. Suddenly, Rusty noticed something. Boulder's moving. Don't be so daft. It can't, said the driver. But it could. It's rolling along our line. We'll stop here until Boulder passes by, said the driver. But Boulder was nowhere to be seen. Then, oh no, it's behind us! Just ahead, they saw a small junction. One line went uphill. Boulder thundered past. Meanwhile, Skarloey was making his way up to the quarry. Then he saw Boulder. Help! Boulder was catching up fast. We must warn the yards, shouted Skarloey. Yes, but how? Called Rusty. Boulder rounded a bend, and there ahead was Rheneas. It's running loose, yelled Rheneas. His driver drove him back as fast as he could. Hurry! Better a smash than a squash, sighed his driver. At the yards, Percy was collecting trucks. Then he heard Boulder. Oh no, heading straight for me, squeaked Percy. When Sir Topham Hatt inspected the damage, he decided to close the mine. Then he looked at Boulder. We should have left this part of the island alone. They moved Boulder to a hill close by the yards. Rusty is sure that on a clear night it is gazing up at the mountain and that its sighs are being carried on the wind to where it once used to stand proud and silent. I wonder if Rusty is right. Don't you? The little engines were busy clearing their railroad of leaves and broken branches. Peter, Sam, and Rusty often worked together. One day, Rusty helped Peter Sam to a water tower. Peter Sam felt much better after his long drink, but the freight cars were bored. Let's break away. Their loads were heavy and the couplings old. One snapped. Faster, faster, shouted the freight cars. A sign read slow steep bends and ravine ahead, but the silly cars never saw it. Then it was too late. Peter Sam arrived at the scene of the disaster. His driver sighed. This was our fault. We didn't secure them properly. We'll have to get help to pull them out. Sir Topham Hatt will be very annoyed. And he was. You will work in the yards until I can trust you again. Duncan was delighted with Peter Sam's dilemma. Fancy not securing your freight cars on a hill. They'll come back to spook you and your special funnel. Woo! And who's to say you're not afraid of ghosts? Snapped Rusty. Ghosts? Things that go bump in the night? Rubbish! Well, I'll tell you a story that will make your funnel quiver, Rusty said. A long time ago, a little engine was returning home. It was a misty, moonlit night. Suddenly, the engine lost control and plunged over the side into the swamps below. He was never found again. But many a workman will tell you that when the moon is full, they have seen the little engine trying to get home. But he never reaches the other side. So what do you think of that, Duncan? Rubbish, replied Duncan. Never mind him, Peter Sam. He'd be frightened if he really saw a ghost. This gave Peter Sam's driver an idea. Let's play a trick on Duncan. The next day, he spoke to Duncan's driver and fireman, who agreed. We'll do it tonight. Duncan had to take coal cars to the slate mines and then bring cars back. Duncan's driver decided as part of the plan to cross the old iron bridge. Haunted bridge. Rubbish, snorted Duncan. It's as tame as a pet rabbit. But all the same, he kept thinking about Rusty's story. When dusk fell, he was keen to leave. If we don't go now, Scarloey will take my favorite place in the sheds. We have to collect our cars first, his driver replied. He could see their plan was working because Duncan was nervous. When night fell, they set off. The mists were rising around the old iron bridge. Duncan whistled, and the sound echoed everywhere. Then, ahead, he saw flickering lights. His driver knew they were only insects that shine brightly at night, but to Duncan they looked like an engine. Next, his driver secretly threw a rock from the cab into the ravine below. It's the ghost! Take me back! Take me back, please! When Duncan reached the safety of his shed, he closed his eyes tightly. Spooked, are you, Duncan? Laughed his driver. No, I'm asleep. And Duncan refused to open his eyes. He did, though, when he thought his driver wasn't looking, just to make sure that he was still there. Stepney, the Bluebell engine, works closely with his friend Rusty. One day, Sir Topham Hatt came to see him. Rusty tells me you're in need of a change, so I want you to help Toby and Mavis in the quarry. Oh, thank you, sir, said Stepney. Shall I be away long? Just today. But please be careful. It is easy to get lost up there, so be back before dark. We will, said the driver. Stepney soon arrived at the quarry. We're glad you're here to help us, said Toby. Are these my cars? Asked Stepney. Only some of them. There's masses more in the sidings, replied Mavis. The more the merrier. Stepney was really enjoying himself. The dustier he became, the harder he worked. Mavis and Toby were impressed. Then the foreman spoke to his driver. We have a night special to take to the building site at the new branch line. Do you want to pull the train? Yes, please, said the driver. But he should have asked Sir Topham Hatt first. Night came. Be careful, Stepney, advised Toby. I will, and thank you for a lovely day. I do hope I can come back again. The line can be spooky, said Mavis. Thank you for the warning. And with that, Stepney puffed away. Stepney arrived on time and made the delivery of rocks and stones for the workmen. Then he set off for home. That's when the trouble began. The fog came down. Mavis was right. Suddenly everything does look spooky. There's a signal box, called his driver. And the signal light is green. Someone must have been expecting us. But they weren't. The points had been set in the wrong direction, but Stepney didn't realize this. Home, here we come! Then they approached an unknown area. The driver made a decision. It's best if we rest here until the fog clears. What are those strange sounds? Wondered Stepney. Then the fog slowly lifted. Oh no! We're in the scrap yards! His driver and fireman went for help. Stepney was all alone, but not for long. 2 diesels approached. Got you this time, Stepney. You'll make very fine scrap indeed. Buffer 'em, Bert. The diesels took him to the large smelter shed. Bye-bye, Stepney. Stepney looked up. Above him was a huge grabber. This engine's not for scrapping! The grabber wasn't listening. But just as it was about to grab hold of him, it stopped. There stood Sir Topham Hatt. It's a good thing I'm visiting this yard tonight. Saving you from scrap is becoming a habit, Stepney. Please stop it. Yes, sir. But I have learned something. What's that? There's no place like home. And that's exactly where you're going now. Bluebells forever. It was a moonlit night. Henry was taking a goods train to the station by the lake. Whenever that owl hoots, a mist rolls in, murmured Edward. There's a legend that when the mist's about, there's a ghost about too. Take care on the old line, Henry. Stupid bird, said Henry. Owls, mists, ghosts. Edward's going soft at the boiler. There's no mist. But Henry was wrong. What's that? Cried Henry. It's an amber lamp, murmured his driver. That means proceed with caution. Who's there? No one replied. Henry crept slowly forward. He stopped by a tree. It had a sign nailed to it, "Beware of the viaduct." The driver was surprised. No one warned us about that before. And look, the signal's red. And the gates are closed. And there's a fogman's coat. But where is its owner? Then they saw a light move within the station building. Ghosts! Exclaimed Henry. Edward was right. Something very strange is happening, said his driver. I think it's best we go back. So do I, agreed Henry. By morning, the mist had cleared. A workman was talking about the unsafe viaduct. Lucky you didn't cross it last night. Yes, but we don't know who warned us, replied Henry's driver. Later that day, he spoke to Henry. The viaduct has been repaired. We can take our train back along the old line tonight. Henry really didn't want to. But when nightfall came, he was sizzling nicely. Suddenly, an owl hooted, and then Gordon thundered by. Oh, look, Henry's spooked, said a freight car. Be quiet, snapped Henry. I'm not scared. But he was. little later, the fog came down. As they approached the same area, they saw the amber light again. "Here we go," said Henry's driver. Then, unknown to Henry, the gates mysteriously closed by themselves, and the signal went red. The freight cars had seen everything, and they were spooked. "Faster, faster! There's a ghost about!" "Stop, stop!" yelled Henry. A mysterious figure watched Henry go by. Ahead was a landslide blocking the line. Henry braked hard, but the freight cars hit some of the rubble and plunged into the ravine. Just then, Henry's driver saw a strange sight coming towards them. "What's that?" he said. The fireman laughed. "That's our ghost. It's Old Bailey, the fogman." Old Bailey was very cross. "I tried to warn you about the viaduct. Why didn't you pay attention?" "We're sorry," replied the driver. "Is there anything we can do to thank you?" "I'd like to operate that old station. If you let me, I promise I won't spook Henry again." And in a little while, Old Bailey's wish was granted. "You and your station will be really useful," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Let's hear a hearty thank you to the friendliest, ghost on the island." Everyone cheered, especially Henry, who was the happiest of all. One day, Sir Topham had arranged with Thomas the tank engine to take his wife and grandchildren to the seaside. The sun shone, and everywhere looked splendid. But Lady Hatt was feeling hot and tired. She took her troubles out on Annie and Clarabelle. "Those coaches are old and uncomfortable. Why don't you use them as beach huts instead?" Thomas was most upset. "You won't let them turn Annie and Clarabelle into beach huts, will you?" "Of course not, Thomas," replied his driver, "but I must admit they could be smartened up." The next day, Sir Topham Hatt used Percy to take his family to Harold's airfield. They were just about to board Harold when it happened. "What was that?" cried Sir Topham Hatt. "That's tiger moth," grumbled Harold. "It's rude and flies much too low." "So I can see. Please take us up, Harold, before there's another disturbance." A few days later, Harold arrived at their holiday home with bad news. "It's tiger moth," said Harold's pilot. "It's gone missing. Do you wish to join the search party with us?" "I think I'd better." "There's Tiger Moth," called Sir Topham Hatt. Then he spoke to the pilot. "You are showing off and flying dangerously. I will speak to your controller and request that you are grounded." "Yes, sir," replied the pilot. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I shall return to my holiday." "Jolly good idea, sir." Sir Topham Hatt arranged to meet up with Toby and Henrietta to take them somewhere special. They arrived at a small river inlet. "What a beautiful boat!" exclaimed the children. "It's my special treat." Sir Topham Hatt took the helm with his wife beside him. "It's so nice to be away from the railway for once," he said to her. "And far cleaner," she replied. But life on the river is very different from that on the rails. The family were enjoying themselves so much that they forgot to watch where they were going. "Oh, botheration," said Sir Topham Hatt. "We're stuck." And they were. Other boats tried to pull them off the mud bank, but it was no use. Percy saw the commotion and stopped. "Is there anything we can do to help?" called his driver. "Yes, indeed there is." "This is the life, isn't it, my dear?" Soon they arrived at a small station. There was Thomas with Annie and Clarabelle, who were looking as smart as their new paint, inside and out. "My!" exclaimed Lady Hatt. "What splendid coaches! So much more suitable than those old beach huts on wheels." No one said a word. But that evening, Annie and Clarabelle spoke to Thomas. "It's very nice to get compliments, but no matter what we look like, we'll always be useful, won't we, Thomas?" "Of course," their friend replied.
Bye.